Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So as you could tell by the title of the video, we will be continuing to talk about this very large and potentially dangerous, powerful, a very potent late winter, almost early spring snowstorm, winter storm system, whatever you want to call it. The confidence on this thing occurring is obviously very high. We are literally just maybe 1 or 2 days away from this thing occurring, and the confidence is a bit lower than I would like. You're right, the models are still in a decent bit of a disagreement. Some of the high res models are starting to come in, but really aren't helping that much. They're in their own sense pretty well disagreed, and it's definitely a tricky forecast. Regardless, a few things do seem certain that there will be a swath somewhere across the Midwest of very heavy wet snow, and there also will be a very heavy rain event areas just south of where that snow is. And of course, there is increasing confidence for a severe weather event across the southern United States that will be bringing really the most dangerous conditions from this kind of storm system. So let me start showing you the different models and the different forecasts and what the National Weather Service are thinking. But before we do that, I do want to give myself a little shout out here. Basically what I'm trying to say is that if you are new to this channel, hello and welcome. You know, check out the videos, check out the channel. I'm a hobbyist, not a professional meteorologist, and I like talking about the weather. So if you like this type of content, consider subscribing, liking, leaving a comment. I always say this at the beginning because I always get too carried away towards the end of the video. So that's why I say this. And now, and again, yes. So if you are a new, just check out the channel and see. Of course, you don't have to. All right, so let's start talking about this, and I'm going to start off by showing you what the National Weather Service looks like right now in terms of its warnings and advisories. Kind of yesterday, I remember showing you this map. You're right, and I don't know if you remember, but there were many things, I guess, on the map. There were those red areas, which was the red flag warnings, but there wasn't any of these things. There was a hydrologic outlook for much of Illinois, northern Indiana, southern Michigan, but there wasn't a flood watch, which you could actually see there is for a good area. It is masked by some of the high wind warnings, which is also a big part of this system, but you can see there's a flood watch for as far as south of Indianapolis. Further north, there's a winter storm watch and some, again, hydrologic issues because of how the heavy rain could be falling on frozen grounds, leading to runoff and flooding. And of course, the severe weather is a threat as well, but there aren't any watches that they issue out 2 to 3 days in advance, unlike they do with the winter storm watches. Usually severe weather, it's just severe thunderstorm warnings and whatever tornado warnings just before the actual event occurs. So that is what it currently looks like. Notice that there is going to be a bit of mountain snow also to do with this system, and actually quite a bit of it. We're right there on the front range of the Rockies into Denver, Boulder. You are under a winter storm watch. It's 52 degrees there, so enjoy that warm weather while it lasts, because you're going to get a good dumping of snowfall. But like typical Denver, by the weekend you are back into the 50s and 60s. So a lot of that will be melting. That's an interesting climate they have there. Regarding the severe weather, there are currently 2 days that we are on the lookout for this severe weather event to take hold in. These 2 days are mainly going to be Wednesday and Thursday. Notice that there is a slight risk for Wednesday, again, for severe weather. This will probably be upgraded to at least and enhanced by tomorrow. If not, a slight risk is still issued for, and the big part here is that it's issued for very large cities like Dallas, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Arlington, Texas. And yes, this low pressure is powerful, has a lot of moisture, so I'll be surprised if enhanced isn't issued for these areas. The biggest categorical threat, you can see tornadoes are at 5%, wind is at 15%, and hail is at 15%. So wind and hail are tied. Tornadoes are also a threat, but just not as significant. I do think that Thursday will be a worse day for the severe weather in terms of its intensity. I highly doubt that they will leave it as slight. I think there will be at least a enhanced issued for at least a portion of this area here. Again, large cities: Memphis, Birmingham, Shreveport, Little Rock, and Jackson. Notice that the probabilistic, it is again 15%, but we don't have the categorical yet because it is still a bit too far away for them to, I guess, issue that. And let's take a look at some of these weather models and start showing you what the different deal is with these models and why they aren't really in agreement. So yesterday we were talking about how it was between the GFS and the European model and how those two were, I guess, arguing back and forth along with the Canadian on which scenario the system could take. Again, I mentioned multiple times that regardless of what exactly happens, this thing is still a nasty storm and a potentially dangerous beast. But the two small differences did have a pretty big impact on some areas, regarding especially the snowy side of things. Right now, notice the GFS, or let me just go back and say that if you recall, the GFS was a stronger scenario with the storm, and it was further towards the north, while the Canadian and European kept it a bit more progressive, kept it weaker, limited the impacts of at least the heavy rain and the snow, and it was also quite a bit further towards the south. And since that video yesterday, when I made it yesterday in the evening, 24 hours ago, there have been a few changes, but again, not as much, I guess. Convergence on one single scenario as we would like, and the National Weather Service is also kind of mentioning that in their forecast, that this is a pretty uncertain forecast, which these forecasts do happen. They're just always uncomfortable when they do. But the GFS, I would say, still, in my opinion, has the better handle of the two models, and that is not only reflected with how the other two models have behaved, but also based off the National Weather Service and how they've issued a snowfall estimate. So thus far at this point, that is more I guess, in line with what the GFS ensemble is showing. And there really is almost, as I mentioned, a lot of the atmospheric pieces are getting put together for this really doubtful situation for it to be just as a progressive system as the European and Canadian show. So let me show this to you. First of all, the GFS. While the GFS, you can see it does show, again, all that moisture getting streamed up to the north. Tomorrow it is exploding in terms of that precipitation. Look at that. Boom, we have that cold front, mainly rain for most locations, a bit of ice and snow to the north. Again, the exact location of this is still uncertain, even though, yes, we are not far out from this, and probably even a few hours out from this event, it won't be certain. Notice, again, we have that snow across Colorado, right? That's where that winter storm watch is, and those advisories. Notice the GFS breaks out snow for Amarillo, the panhandles of both Texas, Oklahoma, much of Kansas, into really Kansas City. We see a lot of ice and sleet into portions of Illinois, Iowa, and into Indiana, Michigan, right? So this thing is also intensifying very quickly, and you can see it starts budging towards the north and east, as well as towards the east, leaving behind a lot of snow, and again, a lot of severe weather in its footprint. This is through the day on Thursday. This is how it progresses, and then it moves into Canada. Cities like Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec, all under the gun for some rain, followed by some ice and then snow. And notice most of the Northeast gets in on some rain before this thing dries out and really quickly actually skedaddles out of here. So notice total footprint of precipitation, including rain and snow. The GFS has trended slightly towards the south with a few latest model runs, and I wanted to say that yesterday I kind of made it seem that it was just the GFS or the European scenario that were going to happen. And there's always the in-between. And that seems most likely what's going to happen, as that's usually what happens. And what I think is most likely going to happen is that the the GFS was more accurate, or close to, a few days ago. I still think that it was, again, more of a northern outlier, and I think what they have right now, the most latest GFS at that 18Z, the evening one with that total snowfall, this is a pretty accurate snowfall footprint of what may happen. Sorry about that. I think it will be a bit further towards the south than previously thought, according to the GFS, but I still don't think it will be as far south as the European. So I think the GFS had a better handling on the track. I think it also had a better handling of the structure of the storm, and let me explain why. So this is what the GFS shows. Obviously, I think a lot of these amounts, the foot plus, those are probably a bit over exaggerated. I do think, though, if the GFS scenario does come true, it will be over a foot of snow possible, if not likely. Notice the Canadian. This is what it shows, and yeah, it's definitely a difference. I mean, it's a remarkable and kind of an uncomfortable difference. Notice, this is what it showed yesterday, the Canadian. It showed a more intense band, and look, this is what it showed the day before that. And you can see it's essentially done a lot of jumping around, back and forth, weakening, strengthening. It hasn't been too consistent, and to be honest, I don't think that the Canadian scenario has the best handle on this. Now, I think it's really just between the European and the GFS, as I think the European has a very valid scenario going on. And let me show you its model run. So again, very similar structure, right? We have a lot of rain exploding across Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas. Look at this map, right? I'm not going to be able to name every city that's kind of impacted by this. And I will read off the general timelines when this is occurring. So it's mainly rain still tomorrow late at night, into 6 to 10 o'clock in the afternoon for a good portion wherever you do see that rain. If you don't know where you live on this map, I can't help you with that. And notice that by early Thursday morning, we see severe weather starting to get its act up across the Midwest, and sorry, not the Midwest, the southern United States, the southern Central Plains, Ohio Valley. A lot of rain out ahead of the severe weather, right? So wherever those storms come across, they could cause quite a bit of flooding and issues on top of all the rain that has already fallen. And notice that snowy side starts to explode. Now, do note that the European is definitely more comparable to what the GFS shows. It's definitely not as weak as a Canadian, and has trended towards a storm structure that what the GFS has been showing for a few days. So this is the European model a few days back. I think this is Sunday or Monday. Yeah, I think Monday. So this was yesterday. Let's go back even further. I want to go back, say, to Sunday. This is how it showed this system, the European. And you could see that it showed a strong storm, right? Lots of rain, snow. But the thing is that it was a lot more progressive compared to even what it does show now. And versus the GFS has been more consistent with it. You can see now it has much more of a pronounced comma shape. Not, I wouldn't say much more, but it is definitely trended towards that direction. The track, though, has stayed relatively consistent. There has been a slight trend towards the north. But do notice that either way, it's a very powerful storm. It crashes through into Canada, the U.S., right there, northeast, and it exits by Friday. So in terms of total rainfall, I think this is a pretty good estimate that what could be occurring. Just again, the northern edge of this could be further towards the north or a bit further towards the south. We don't have that guarantee, and honestly, I can't really tell you. I wish I had a magic ball to tell you which way it would trend, but this way it seems too hard to tell. But notice, a lot of these locations in that pink, in that kind of purplish colors, that's anywhere from 1 to 2 inches. In that red, it's anywhere from 2 to 3. And then you see that yellow, it's even 4, 5, 6 inches. Where if you have series of thunderstorms occurring with heavy rainfall, a primed atmosphere, you could easily get those amounts. So some flooding is let's say it's a concern. So those are the two different models, the three at this point. So let me show you the snowfall from the European, because it's also relatively impressive. Again, it's impressive, but compared to the GFS, not as. Notice that it shows areas like Chicago only seeing 2 to 4 kind of inches, and it paints the swath of snow further towards the southern portion of the scenarios, the different scenarios. And I do think, again, that the GFS is a slightly better model in this scenario, and I said that yesterday, and I think it has held true for the most part. As now I want to show you what the National Weather Service thinks, right? So this is what the European model shows. Notice the heaviest snow is through northern Indiana, central Illinois, Missouri, and the Canadian, which honestly the National Weather Service completely doesn't really agree with this one as well. I mean, look at that. That's way further to the south. So, right, central Illinois, that snow track. Now, let me show you what their current snowfall thinking is. Again, this will probably change. And which way, I don't know. But I'm just going to click on my location to show you that the swath of snow, instead of going through central Illinois, like the Canadian, goes through more of northern Illinois. The European is closer, but it has shifted kind of like 100, 200 miles towards the south, which is possible. You can see that this swath of heavy snow could still shift further south. I wouldn't say it's going to shift further north. That seems very unlikely. So if you live in Wisconsin, northern central Michigan, or I would say Iowa, because it might affect your areas a bit more there, don't expect this thing to really shift much further towards the north. And do note that, again, if I were to take a look at the weather models, so right here, and show you the National Weather Service forecast that they kind of give out in a model format, right there, they have the heaviest snow across more of a track where, again, the GFS shows it. They have some of the mounts lighter mounts, because they're not sure which exactly scenario in terms of the intensity will come true. But I do think that the Canadian is kind of out of it. I don't think it's a good model to look at. The European, definitely a model that we need to take a factor in, and the GFS I still think has the best handle on it. So do note that, again, severe weather, snow is on its way. I want to show you some high-res models now. So these are models that go out, only 40-ish hours. And let me show you the RAP. I think this one has a decent handle, though it is definitely only a scenario that may or may not come true. And let me start showing you this with the reflective precip. So this is into tomorrow. So this is today or tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? This is now tomorrow around 6 o'clock in the morning. So 7, still dry. We'll have very strong southwest winds. And now as I push this day or push this further into the day on Wednesday, we see along those converging lines of really the strong winds from the north and south, we see precipitation develop. So Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, those areas starting to see a bit of rain. And now a lot of areas, Chicago, Milwaukee, potentially just south of Milwaukee, getting in there for sure. Just it matters. I guess it just depends on how much. You can see picking up a lot of rainfall, and it's going to be falling very heavily. This is into tomorrow evening and through the overnight on Thursday. Notice though, the cold air does quickly sweeps in from the north, and we start seeing a lot of cold air and some snow develop. Again, this kind of sags further towards the south, and we could see continued rain across central Illinois now into central Indiana, Ohio, Detroit, and we see a pretty nasty snowy side develop to the north. Again, this is just one scenario. Notice this one paints it further towards the north, and we see a pretty nasty ice line as well. And by early Thursday morning, so this is 7 through 9 a.m. depending on which time zone you live, as this thing is stretched out very far. It's already raining in southern Canada, but look, it continues driving towards the north, very strong winds, right? So this could be even some localized blizzard conditions, very, very heavy snow, and then of course very significant rainfall and potentially severe weather. So notice this one takes it pretty far to the north, but I would say this is a more northern scenario, and you could see that in terms of the total snowfall, 10 to 1, because that's most likely comparable to what it will be at. It shows a lot of snow even into cities like Milwaukee, even getting towards the Quad Cities. I think this is the kind of the northern extent of what may occur. But the reason I have a decent, intuition this may be close to what may come true is because take a look at the RAP model from which went out to 51 hours, but a few hours ago. So earlier on in the day, it showed a scenario that it obviously went out less further because it was back further in time, but you could see that this overall system was a bit shifted towards the south. It wasn't as it didn't show snow really even reaching St. Joseph, Missouri with this one, which was really today at around 3 o'clock. But with the latest one, you could see that it shows a lot of snow in terms of the total snowfall, getting pretty far north of that. And there's what I'm trying to say is that there's been a northern trend with this model, while the GFS trended further towards the south, and a few models have kind of done various different little things. So in terms of track, this thing's a nightmare to forecast, and I just want to say that, looking at the current track from the National Weather Service, this could still shift by like 100, 200 miles in either way. If it were to be in one way, I would definitely favor the south. But in intensity, I do think that the snowfall amounts could be, if a GFS scenario plays out, definitely 8 to 12 inches. That is quite a bit. If a European-like scenario plays out, then more of the kind of the 4 to 6 inch range, and probably not much more than that. So that's that. In terms of rainfall, obviously we live in Indiana, in areas that are impacted by the rain. I could show you the total precip, and this is what the National Weather Service currently puts out. Notice this does include obviously snowfall, but look, Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, a lot of rain. I mean, you're looking at 2 to 4, maybe even 5 inches, and across the south also good amounts of precipitation, and into the northeast as well, getting pretty good with those snowfall amounts. So that's that, and new note to that, again, it's a very large area, so this system is going to be impactful either way you look at it. So we still have, we'll have to watch just these models and exactly see which one comes true. But just to show you that even if the weaker, I guess, European model comes true in terms of the snowfall, it is still a massive system in general, right? And look, we see this thing develop, very heavy rain, thunderstorms, ice, snow, and this thing blows up and blossoms, and boom, you could see it skedaddles. And we do have a lot of heavy rain on the side, and really more of that severe weather threat that is concerning. And either way, the European, would favor cities more like the southern Canadian cities with heavier snow, which should also be impactful. So it's kind of more of a trade-off of cities, not necessarily a less or more impactful system. And by the way, future long range for those that are bored by the system, as it doesn't impact the region. It looks, let me tell you, it looks very, very active. I mean, actually, a very active pattern. You can see a multi-day event, kind of a disorganized system coming in next week, but it definitely has the potential for some pretty far south snow, maybe ice for Dallas, pretty far to the south for at least a February snowstorm. So that is that. And again, stay tuned to your local National Weather Service. I will be making another video about this tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have a more decisive track of where this will occur. But, we'll just have to watch models like the NAM, the new NAM that comes out later on in the evening, the HER model, the one that comes out at 24, so midnights, or sorry, at 7 p.m. and that one goes out 50 or 48 hours, and see what the high-res models are doing at that snow. But again, just to show you a simulation of what the severe weather may look like, or the storms across the south, I want to show you this model. This is a pretty good one. I do think it has a decent handle of it. It usually does kind of entice some of the thunderstorm activity on a regular basis, but I still think it's a good idea. Has a good idea with the placement, and shows the intensity of these storms decently, even if they are a bit more colorful than they will be on the radar. Notice that this is what it looks like tomorrow at midnight. You can see a lot of different wave structures. Again, it may not be exactly like this, but if you live in Oklahoma, Kansas, be expecting to see some rainfall, if not severe weather. And notice that this is just streaming towards the north. We see that frontal boundary develop right there, cold front, and along that we see that system develop, that snow, sorry, and you can see this races towards the east, and yeah, it is a lot of stuff to work with. So we'll have to wait and see which scenario plays out. This could be, again, further towards the south. So that's basically it for today's video, guys. Again, here's a snowfall track. Let me show you. Sorry, here's a rainfall footprint. I think this is a pretty darn good estimate of what may happen. So if you're in Indiana, expecting 4 inches of rain right there, and you think this will change, it probably won't. In fact, if anything, it might increase from that amount. In terms of total snowfall, this is what it looks like right now. If you think this is going to lessen, probably not. If anything, the National Weather Service, once they know which track is more accurate, they're going to bump these snowfall amounts quite a bit. And yeah, I would say this is a pretty good bet of what may occur for now. And in terms of severe weather, these are the areas that are most impacted on Thursday, and this is on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. So stay safe, stay tuned, guys, to the local National Weather Service, and I will be catching you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.